Welcome, welcome everyone to our very exciting book launch today. It's a very exciting day in the life of the Sudbury Historical Society because we finally have Arcadia's Images of America, Sudbury, their newest edition. So anyway, we're very, very excited. This has been a project that's been going on for, I guess, over 18 months, Ursula says. Longer than that, let's say 2 years. From the time that Lee Swanson first suggested to the board that there were now enough photographs to meet Arcadia's requirement of 200 photographs, that we had enough to do that. So the board was very excited, and a committee was quickly formed. And actually, I'd like that committee to come up, if you don't mind. And Mary Vivaldi, who was the president during the entire time that this book was in process, was part of that. And Beth Gray Nix, who chaired this project and put in so much, and Ursula Lyons. Nancy Summers and Joan Meenan. Joan Meenan, there you are. Okay. Lee Swanson and Chuck Zimmer. Could you come up, please? And Peggy, she's still out there, but I would really like her to come up. I think that's it. Okay. So Nancy, where are you going?
Nancy, come back here.
So the committee started, and they sorted through, and it took months and months and months to sort through hundreds of photographs, and they had to really meet the standards of Arcadia. And Ursula wrote a grant to the Sudbury Foundation to fund this project. They accepted it, and we're so very grateful to the Sudbury Foundation for doing that. And also, you were the liaison with Arcadia, so thank you very much. Lee Swanson provided his expertise, which knows no end, about the town of Sudbury, and wrote the captions, the texts, and so on. And Chuck Zimmer, who is very modest, but this would not have happened without Chuck. He, absolutely not. He is our computer guru. So he scanned the photographs into the computer, developed a program that made it easier to organize the photographs. And some of the photographs were on glass plates, but that could also be scanned into the computer. And then he brought those images up to the quality that was required by Arcadia. So that was a huge, huge job. Anyway, as I said, this was I think it was a labor of love. Sometimes frustrating, I'm sure. But anyway, we are so very grateful to this team that brought this book to you. Thank you. And we want to give you some flowers and what have you. Now, we have two men here, as you can see, and, well, flowers, I don't know. So they are getting, with our thanks, for Lee and Chuck, gift certificates to Staples, which we thought they might enjoy. So, thank you again, and Beth, Joan. Joan Meenan. Joan Meenan is right here. She's selling books. I'm sorry. So we have seats in the front if you want to sit. I think you want to see the program, right? So Chuck and Beth, who was the chair of this committee, Beth Gray-Nix, have put together this program that you're going to see today. And oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that Arcadia not only required 200 photographs, but they of excellent quality, but they also, those photographs could not be published anywhere else. So the book that Laura Scott, for example, wrote, and it was published in 1989, that none of those photographs could be used. So these are photographs you're going to see for the first time.
Launch your presentation right there in the middle.
The cursor.
Well, we have wonderful new photographs.
Cursor.
Chuck.
Where is it?
It
Technology.
was fine yesterday. You have to understand
We've
this.
practiced this, but
I
there's
did,
there's no
but
cursor.
there's no cursor.
there's no cursor.
And I could tell you to turn to page so-and-so, but that's not great.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
No, cursor, the little arrow thing.
Let me go around the back and take a peek.
Just a minute. We'll let him play with that for a minute. I want to tell you a little bit more about what Ruth was talking about with the pictures. We'd really like to thank the members of the town of Sudbury, because without their picture donations, we wouldn't have a book. There is, however, one thing when you donate pictures. You don't necessarily know who the people are or where the place is unless somebody writes it down. So for all of you who have pictures at home that you haven't written down on for future generations, I encourage you to do that, because we have some wonderful pictures upstairs. I have not a clue who they are, and they're great, but I couldn't use them for the book, and I feel bad about that because there were some really wonderful pictures. And we're always still looking for more pictures. So if you get inspired by what you see and what you're thinking about, that would be wonderful. And we can scan them and return them to you, so you don't have to consider it a permanent gift. But you would be duly archived in our system. Is anybody interested? Oh, thank God. Sorry, but I didn't know how to do it without that. And is anybody interested in learning how to preserve pictures at another time? Okay, can I see some hands, just so I know whether it's worth it or not? Okay, because we were thinking about it might be fun to have a workshop for people on an afternoon where we could talk about preserving pictures and how to do that. So that's nice to know. All right, so as Ruth said, the Sudbury Foundation was instrumental in this because we couldn't have afforded the equipment or the initial outlay for the books without their support. Now the cover page here is quite amazing. You can look in the back and you see a Canadian and an American flag, and this is from the Raymond story. The pictures show employees of George J. Raymond on their way to the annual Dominion Day picnic. And I was confused. What was Dominion Day? Had no idea. Well, apparently Dominion Day was Canada's name for their Independence Day. It's been changed now to Canada Day, but they had this, and Mr. Raymond came from Canada originally, and he decided, like many good employers, to entertain his employees and their families once a year in a marvelous picnic at his place in Sudbury. From 1905 to 1915, and about 1,000 employees came out by train. We used to have trains in Sudbury, to come out and enjoy food, and they did skits and all these wonderful things. And he had 5 stores. I grew up with a Raymond's in Quincy. There's an Anchor store in Boston and 3 others, so that was quite fun. And this next shot is of Dominion Day, and we had to cut this down a little bit because it was too wide. But you get an idea of how many people were there for their picnic, all in their fancy clothes, and it's wonderful. Sorry, family. Coming in. It was quite the amazing. Can you imagine going on a picnic with white skirts? Couldn't think of how to do that. Front two seats, guys. Sorry. Okay. This is a picture of our very beginnings by Hattie Goodnow. This is an award-winning picture that she took in 1905 when Sudbury was still very much agriculture at the time. And Hattie is the lady that Ruth was referring to about the glass negatives. She was also, thank goodness, one of the people who actually gave me notes about her pictures. And her camera is right over here. You can look at it afterwards. See that wooden box thing? Compare carrying that around to what we have now that we can slip in our pockets. But that's a wonderful old-fashioned camera. This is Bonnie Bell Farm, and they produced milk for Hood's. Hood's was started as a company in 1846, and Hood bought Audrey Borden's farm in the 1920s, and it is now where Raytheon is along Route 20. You know, on the left there as you go out towards Marlboro, and they transported their milk in trucks out of town. Now, this picture didn't make the book. And it's my favorite picture, so it's in the presentation. The picture is of Cal and Mr. Eaton's pig. And they're on Concord Road, and I've never seen a pig walked. And it was in the snow, so that made it even more bizarre. He was too fuzzy to fit the image quality for the book, so he didn't make it, but I took author's privilege and put it in the presentation anyway. This family should be very familiar to you all. This is the Calvecchio family. Savita and Giuseppe are the parents with their two oldest daughters, Anna and Catherine. And you can see that this was an equal opportunity farm. Savita was running things. They are a wonderful asset to Sudbury. They've preserved over 200 acres of open land, which is quite a feat in this day and age. Their products were originally driven to Boston's Quincy market, and he has been a major grower in the area for many years. Now, all right, this picture could not be taken today because there are too many trees. It was taken in 1905 when land was still open in Sudbury. This is scenic view, and you're looking from the top of Green Hill, and the windmills look a little strange today, but they actually were used to pump water out of the ground. And there are two houses in here. Where's my cursor? There we go. That's Natalie Eaton's house, and over to the right, if I can get my cursor there we go. And that one is, I'm sorry, I've lost track of where the heck I was. Further over. Oh, Roger, that's the Rogers house and his barn. Okay. This is Hubbard Brown's greenhouse and farm, and that's at 79 Knobscott Road, and the original house was built in 1780. Hubbard Brown himself was quite the innovator. His picture's in the book too. In the 1890s, he invented the greenhouses you see here, and they were heated. So he was able to sell cucumbers in Boston during the winter, 10 cents a piece. And if you think about what that meant in early 1900s money, it's an outrageous sum. This is Briar Frost Farm over on 117 at 148 Great Road. It was a dairy farm in the 1940s. And unfortunately, all is left, there's the cursor, is the main house, and the rest of it has become a housing complex. The other thing that's here, which I'll hold up, is this is a warming pan from that house, from Hubbard Brown's house. Deacon William Brown owned this. It's made out of walnut and brass, and was used to keep your toes warm, all nice and warm during the winter. They put coals in it and Made the sheets warmer. Okay. Now, does anybody recognize who this is? It's Babe Ruth. And a publicity shot, no less. This is, that's his daughter, Dorothy, and they are feeding the chickens. And he's all dressed up in his gentleman farmer's outfit. He came to town in 1923 and bought the Obadiah Perry farm on 558 Dutton Road and named it Home Plate. So he did a bunch of these photo ops with the press. Theory has it that he was trying to clean up his bad boy image a little bit, daughter, chickens, the whole bit. But he only stayed in town for a few years. He was here for 3 or 4 years, and then he left. This is John Henry Eaton, born November 17th, 1838. And he lived here his whole life as a carpenter. In 1910, he was living with his sister, Sarah Butterfield, and his 2 brothers, Edward and Newell. And the Eaton family is still here today. Quite dressy for a carpenter. Okay, this, and you can't see the house too well because of the tree, but this is one of the Goodnow houses at 163 Landham Road. And the photo was taken in 1888, and pictured left to right are Howard, Amelia, Edgar, and Ida Goodnow. Now, this is one of my mystery pictures. The woman right here is Lillian Hunt, and this is Hattie Goodnow, but we have no idea who these 2 ladies are. And if anybody has any guesses or ideas, we'd love to hear them, because we just don't know who they are. There's no information about them. This is another favorite picture. We had lots of baby pictures upstairs. Very, very fun. Edward Cookson is standing behind in his little sailor outfit. And this is Edgar Goodnow, who you saw full grown in the other picture, wearing the dress and the little shoes and the whole bit. But this was a smiley picture, and we just thought this was wonderful. William Haynes worked for the Massachusetts State Prisons, and he worked across the river over at the prison that was there, and it was a prison in Charlestown, and they had a song dedicated to him for a minstrel show. But I also wanted to show him because he was a Haynes, and we have lots of Haynes around town. Okay. This is one of our many school pictures. This happens to be of the Wadsworth School, which is located where our present police station is at 415 Boston Post Road. Now, the interesting thing about that was we found out that you could only have a single female teacher in those days. You weren't allowed to be married and teach. There were rules against that until World War II. The 2 women here, Marion Eaton is right here, sitting down, and the other woman standing at the back is Jenny Hunt. So, more people who have stood the test of time of Hunts and Eatons. Okay. All right, anybody recognize this gentleman? This is Harry Rice, and he ran Broadmeadow Stables for many, many years, giving lessons and training and boarding horses. His family has quite a history in the area. The stable was at 130 Water Row, and he has 2 family muskets right here, okay? The left one is called a Fowler, and it was carried by Ezekiel Rice on April 19th, 1775. So it was there on the original Patriots' Day. And the other one is was made by Thomas Holbrook, and it's been donated to the Society and is living over in the National Heritage Museum at the moment on display. Okay, this is another one of our Sudbury artists. This is Gertrude Rice, and she, this was a relaxed picture of her. They were very prim and proper in those times, and we have a prim and proper picture of her over here. Gertrude liked to ride around the countryside between 1915 and 1920 and sketch wildflowers. And she used a simple line notebook to do that. That's her screen. You can look at it afterwards. We've copied a bunch of the pictures so you could see. But she used one of those old black and white composition books that we all had in school to sketch the flowers. And we have her cards on sale with 3 samples of them. Debbie's being kind and holding them up in the back, that we still have available. But she painted 180 in all, and she noted later in life that where she had painted her flowers was all gone, been taken over by housing, so those meadows weren't there anymore. It's a little hard to read the writing. This is a daylily that she drew July 10th, 1916. But she did some wonderful drawings. Okay, this one is quite fun. On the left is Helene Sherman, and on the right is her sister Anna, and these was taken in 1920. This is what Girl Scout uniforms looked like back then, and pretty rugged looking. We dug out this picture because the Girl Scouts came to us this year. It's the 100th anniversary of Girl Scouts, and Helene Sherman's best known as an artist, and she drew amazing illuminated calligraphy, paintings, and cards. And she was taught all over but it's the kind of calligraphy that you used to see the monks do in very special books and stuff. But what's fun about this is the Girl Scouts came to us, and I was looking for pictures for them for their 100th anniversary, and this is the one we found that had the most history to it. Okay, this is Hattie Goodnow, who you saw earlier, and Hattie managed to do a self-portrait by tipping her camera that I pointed out earlier up so that she could take a picture of her and this bust. Now, local lore had it that this bust was supposed to be of King Philip. It's not true. It's a generic Indian head that people bought from the local gentleman that went around in wagons selling art. Pictures from 1903. And Hattie was a school teacher for many years in Newton and here. She was single. Okay, this is getting more closer to modern times. This is Rex Traylor and Jerry Lewis, and he produced Boomtown from 1956 to 1974. Did anybody get to go on Boomtown when they were a kid? Yay, I knew somebody did. All right, Jackie. Okay. Well, he learned his cowboy skills in Texas. His grandfather really had a ranch. It wasn't all, acting and stuff. And he was on several programs, New York and Pennsylvania, before he got to us. And on his grandfather's ranch, he learned those skills, and including the singing from real cowboys. He still has a studio in downtown Waltham, and he's also a part-time professor at Emerson College, and he lives in Sudbury. March of 2012, a bill was introduced in the legislature to make him the Massachusetts state cowboy. That's what your legislature is doing with your tax dollars. But actually, he has done a lot of charity work over the years, so I think that was part of their honoring him. Okay, this is a 4th of July parade wagon getting ready to go in front of Hunt's Country Store, and you can see some of the kids wearing Civil War hats, and they're all dressed up in their Sunday best, and they're going to go off and be in one of the parades. Now, this is another really cool picture because I actually know who's in the picture. This was at 4th of July, 1934, near the Peter Noyes School, way back where there are woods now. And pictured halfway up, Bert, is your dad, Larry Ty, on the left, Ray Phillips and Myron Seegers, and then up towards the top is Leo Quinn and Leonard Stiles. But the odd thing, and it's real hard to see way up here, is one of those old-fashioned sock monkeys. Nobody knows why the sock monkey is up there. Does anybody know why the sock monkey was going to get burned? I mean, it's not a dead flag or anything like that, but I'm still curious about why they put a poor sock monkey on top of the bonfire. All right. This is another parade. This is the Tercentennial Parade, September 1939. Policeman Lloyd Bancroft was riding as an Indian chief, and his daughter, Patty, is walking along beside him. Okay. Now, this little group is very special. This was originally on a postcard. This is what's called a Tom Thumb wedding. And if you remember your history, P.T. Barnum collected lots of odd carnival folks, and Tom Thumb was a little person, and that was with P.T. Barnum almost from the beginning. And he eventually did get married, and this became a social occasion that people could reenact with their kids. And so the reenactment took place in 1946 at the Memorial Congregational Church, and married were, let's see, where is he? Lloyd Bancroft and Jane Flynn, and the minister in the back is John Hall. But they would get everybody all dressed up, and they would hold a mock wedding as a big social event. So it was lots of fun. Okay. Now, these stocks were given to the town by the Historical Society May 18th, 1957, to reenact punishment during Puritan times. And on the left is Forrest Bradshaw, who was our president at the time. And this is Harvey Fairbanks. And Bert, there's your dad again. That's Mr. Ty. But nobody knows who the poor guy in the stocks is. Just don't know. Okay. Okay, this is a jaunty group of gentlemen. This is the Minute Militia, or Minute and Militia. Joe can correct me. The picture was taken in 1965 at the Wayside Inn, and Francis Copias, who was the innkeeper for many years, was the perfect host and helped get this group started again. Left to right are Bob Oram, Roger Bumb, John Paluccio, David Bentley, Paul McNally. Standing are Russ Kirby, Ira Amesbury, Bob McLean, and an unknown gentleman that we goofingly refer to as our British spy, because we don't know who he is. Okay. Oh, and I should say that it's the Minute Militia's 50th anniversary, and you will hear more about that from them in the future. Okay, this is the interior of the First Parish Church, taken in 1904 by Harriet Goodnow. It's the site of Sudbury's first meeting house when we had split off from Wayland. The pump organ has been there since 1875, and you can't see it, but there is a handle right here that some young man was paid 10 cents an hour or per service to pump, because otherwise the organ didn't work. No electronics back then, so somebody had to pump up and down while they were doing that. And the church looks very much the same today, except that some of this has been removed, and I think that's gone too, Lee, right? The top is gone, but the lighting is still there. And that was also taken by Harriet Goodnow. Okay. These are the Crams, and they have the large white house that everybody drives by all the time. And that was their summer place from 1900 to 1942. And Mr. Cram was the foremost ecclesiastical architect of his time, and he was very famous for his Gothic style. And his most famous work was a cathedral called the Church of St. John Divine in New York City. But there are very few pictures of him, so I wanted to show him. This is the door of the chapel that they built on their property. Okay. Oops. Something's missing. Wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, never mind. There's a... Okay. This church has been through many, many owners. This is the Evangelical Union Society Church at 277 Concord Road. It was dedicated in 1840 when this part of the Unitarian congregation split off after a vote in 1837. And they chose to move and build a new building later on, which is the MCC today that's over on 26 Concord Road. But back then, it was their home, and then they decided to move, and it became a music hall, and then it became a basketball league hall, and it sold flowers, and unfortunately, then it burned in 1925, and it was one of the two major fires that year that started the town talking about actually bothering to purchase a fire engine. We didn't have one, and I'll tell you more about that later. This is the wonderful Fieldstone Italian chapel over on Mossman Road that was built in the 20s. And if anybody has any questions, Joan Meenan can answer lots of those. It was built by the Maria SS Indulgence Society, and the society was founded for mutual aid to immigrants from Italy near Monte Cassino, which is 81 miles southeast of Rome. And they had great parties. This was a procession. That procession was always the third Sunday in July that went from the Maselli house on Route 117 down the street all the way to the chapel for the adoration of the Madonna, and you can see her being held up right there. She normally was housed inside the chapel, but she took a walk for this particular procession. And since there were so many people who came, they held mass outside the chapel that day, and then they had a big celebration with dancing and picnics in an outdoor pavilion next to the chapel. This is the GAR, and this is one of those great history things that I learned about. The GAR stands for the Grand Army of the Republic, and it was a Civil War veterans group that fought for the rights of Civil War vets. They are marching on Concord Road. And also, we have his society has a book that we talked to you about last year, From Your Loving Son, that Mary Ellen Hoover wrote. Mary Ellen, I know you're here, wave. There you go. And Ellen Niederman co-authored to put together the letters from George F. Moore and his family, and it's really fun reading because you're reading about a part of the war back and forth, what was going on in Sudbury, and I've got my helper holding books up in the back. It's really fun reading about what was actually going on versus what we learned in school. These are the twins. And this was an unusual military picture, which is why we put it in. These are the Mugford twins from Sudbury. Russell's on the left and Robert is on the right. They were vets of World War II. They served at headquarters of the Pacific Theater as part of the Honor Guard, and one of their unique duties was to drive and escort General George MacArthur. Kind of wondered if he picked twins on purpose so nobody could tell who was working, to be sneaky. This is Leo Spotswood, Sergeant Spotswood, excuse me, I mistyped. Sergeant in World War I, and he fought in the trenches of France, and he won a Purple Heart, and one of his unique claims to fame was driving Charles Lindbergh and his new wife, Anne Morrow, on their honeymoon. But he is another long-term Sudbury person. Don, are you here? This is you. Where are you? There he is. Okay. Don Summers, who probably could still fit in his uniform. He's skinny. Okay, he was a pilot in the Korean War, and he's climbing into his SNJ fighter, and he fought from 1950 to 1953, and his wife Nancy is on our board. And this is quite the motley crew. Here we are. It's Memorial Day 1998, and here are vets raising the colors in front of Town Hall. Left to right are Don Summers, Charlie Pepper, Don Pierce, LS student and Afghan vet Mark Wyman, and Air Force Colonel Clay Allen, who unfortunately has recently died. And thank you, June, for coming today. I know getting out is hard. This didn't make it into the book, but it had really unusual history, so I wanted to tell you about it. This is the Allen Country Store, and it's had quite a history. It's was located next to the Sudbury Pines Nursing Home over on Boston Post Road. The building was originally a dance hall, and then during Prohibition, it was the Pines Speakeasy, complete with wooden door and a little hole in it to check if you were legal coming in. In 1946, Willie Allen, who was a grad of the Wayside Boys School, bought it and ran it as a store. So it's had quite the history. This is Grandpa. Grandpa's all over upstairs. This is the Wayside Country Store, that was bought and reopened in 1947 by Milton and Edna Swanson. Father Fred, who's sitting reading the paper there by the fire, really enjoyed being at the store. The husky next to him is his dog Attic, and he was the first Siberian husky used to haul goods in the winter to snowbound warehouses and people out in the woods. Now, does anybody remember what a goober is? Okay. Goober was a peanut, and there used to be a song that we were taught when we were kids about goober peas and stuff, but it was a hoot because they were 39 cents a pound, and quite cheap by our standards. Okay, this is the Sudbury Inn, 410 Boston Post Road, and it was originally built in the 1750s. It's been around quite a long time. Bought by the Wheelers in 1830, and then in the 1920s, it became Ye Old Barbecue Inn. And this is a piece of their dinnerware. It's white with a maroon stripe. Forrest Bradshaw worked there as a night watchman and a clerk in the 1920s. The plate's a little odd. It's a mishmash of designs. You've got birchwood letters up here. And then you've got the Indian. I suppose he's supposed to be barbecuing, but I don't think they ever called it that. And the plates were made in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. But this we've got a complete set of this. So we can have lunch or at some point. This is the Wayside Inn waiting room. Unfortunately, it's not there anymore. It was burned by vandals in the 1940s. It was built in 1897, and it was located on Dutton Road. And it was a special train waiting room, and staff or visitors to the inn would wave the train down to get them to stop. This is the original train station in South Sudbury, opposite 28 Union Ave. And it had two different railroads there. East-west was the B&M Central line, and north-south was the Hartford-New Haven line. Unfortunately, it was turned down in 1955, but there is a small waiting room on the other side of the street that the livery service, one of the chauffeur limousine services, now uses as a headquarters. Okay, this car is at the corner of Hudson and Peakham Road. And can you guys see the First Parish in the background right there? Okay. Now, we've been having a debate about this. Somebody got out of the car to take the picture. But who is the person in the car? Can't tell. Can't tell if it's male or female. I'm sort of guessing female by the hat, but you just can't tell. All right. This is Sudbury's first fire truck, bought in 1930. And it is really an example of town politics in action. Now, remember I told you about the music hall that burned down in 1925? That was the first of 2 major fires this year. So like any good town, they decided to put together a commission in 1926 to study whether they should get a fire truck. Didn't do anything. Not in 27, not in 28, not in 29. Town Hall burned February 5th, 1930. Then they bought the truck. Politics lives in Old Sudbury. Okay, on the left here in the dapper bowler hat is Jack McKinnon, previous owner of McKinnon's Liquor. And he is all dressed up for Old Value Days, which is something the Chamber of Commerce put together. And they did a business adventure where prices were rolled back in town for a day. And does anybody know who's standing next to him? Because we don't have an ID on him. He looks like a what? Okay. A walker. I don't know. I was hoping somebody would have a guess. All right. Now this last picture is a 1901 Ford called Miles Express. Doesn't look like it's going to go too fast. And it was dressed up for the 1939 Tercentennial Parade. That's why all the things are on it. And if you look at the wheels, they're metal over a wooden wheel. Don't see that much anymore. Now, the fun part about the book is that I didn't show you all the pictures. There are lots more pictures inside, and there are lots more pictures upstairs. And we would, as I said earlier, we would love more pictures from people, and we can scan them and give them back to you, and they will become a part of Sudbury history. And it's wonderful because people come looking for information about their old homes or areas. And we have maps that show where some people lived and stuff, but the more information we have, the better job that we can do for people researching their genealogy and their family history. So we're open every afternoon from 1:30 to 5, or call Lee for a special appointment. He's good at that. And again, I'd like to thank the Sudbury Foundation for financial support of us. And now you can come join us for cake and coffee and book selling. Thank you so much for coming today. Do you want to put the other one back up?